over to the Mariners side of things, and the Mariners are. I've talked about this for weeks. Whether it was leading into the trade deadline or earlier in the season when they were struggling. The success that the Seattle Mariners can and would eventually have this season. Oops. Here we go. Has to be internal. There's no trade that they're going to swing that won't cost them a ton that would help this lineup. There's no one bat that they could acquire that could help this lineup turn things around. They have the pieces to be a good baseball team. It's just got to be internal. You look up all and down this lineup, there is power, there is hitting, there is good talent up and down the lineup. We know how the pitching staff has been, whether it be the rotation, even despite the injuries, and the bullpen. It was always about how the offense was going to perform, and that was a big question mark for a while. A lot of guys striking out a ton, poor approach at the plate, couldn't drive runners in. They've been good with the bases loaded all season long, despite what Twitter will tell you, at least statistically. They just haven't been able to drive in runs and some days get hits. And it's been internal. Their success as of recently, since July began, it's been internal. They didn't bring in a ton of players outside of Dominic Canzone and Josh Rojas coming in the Paul Sewald trade, and that got a bunch of flack at first. I know I talked about it a few weeks ago, and those guys have been big contributors as of recently as well. So I told you it had to be internal. I told you. Anyway, we're going to go in here to the the second series of this road trip. First series of the road trip. Yeah. August 14th at the Kansas City Royals, a 6-7 loss to begin the 4-game set. Play the game center fielder Julio Rodriguez. You're going to want to remember that we're going to say the name Julio quite a bit in today's segment. So Julio, 2 hits, 1 run, 4 RBIs that day. The next day, the Mariners are able to bounce back. It's still a close one. They win that one 10-8. Our player of the game, first baseman Ty France. Ty, 4 hits, 1 run, and 3 RBIs, including a solo homer. Ty France has, I believe it's just the 1 5-hit game in his career, and it came against the Kansas City Royals. So Ty loves to hit against Kansas City, and especially at Kauffman Stadium as well, even though that 5-hit game was at T-Mobile Park. August 16th at the Royals to take the series lead, a 6-5 win. Again, another tight one. This Royals team has been good, swinging the bat since July 28th, and they've continued that. They continue that, especially in this Mariners series. I'll play the game once again. Center fielder Julio Rodriguez. Julio 4 hits, 1 run, and 2 RBIs on the day. Then Julio put the bow on things on the series finale when the Mariners would complete the series win against the Royals August 17th with a 6-4 win. Our play of the game, of course, Julio, 5 hits, 1 run, and 5 RBIs, including a go-ahead 3-run homer in the 8th inning. He turned on a pitch high and inside and gave the Mariners a lead after a few innings where they had really kind of looked abysmal at the plate and were trailing. And it didn't seem like they'd be able to get that sort of rally that they needed. Julio did it himself and put the cap on a really impressive series. So, as I said, really impressive series for Julio there. The Mariners battle out a tough Royals team that they're going to have to see next homestand again. So, well, I'm sure we're going to be in for some more thrilling games there. But again, the Royals have been discounted heavily because of their overall record, and I understand that. But since the end of July, they've been swinging the bat well. Bobby Witt Jr. has been playing great. Michael Garcia plays well over at third base. They've got a few other pieces. Salvador Perez is a Mariners killer for some reason. They've got a decent ball club and some decent pieces, and I'm sure going into the future they do have some things to look forward to, especially Bobby Witt Jr. But we move over here to the next series, a 3-game set down in Houston, down at Minute Maid Park against the Astros. The Mariners would, as you can see it with the broom already, I'll address it in a second, but we'll go through the games. August 18th at the Astros to begin that one, a 2-0 win. Bryce Miller pitches excellent on Friday in his home state of Texas in front of family and friends, going 6 1/3 innings. Center fielder Julio Rodriguez, though, is our player of the game. 4 hits, 1 run, 1 RBI, including a solo homer. So he continues that hot streak, as I talked about, continues to keep things rolling. August 19th, to win the series. The Mariners blow out the Astros 10-3. Our player of the game, it would be Julio. Julio did have a strong performance in this game, but Dylan Moore, 2 hits, 2 runs, 3 RBIs, and a walk for a multi-homer game. Had to go with that. I mean, really strong performance by Demo. It has really been solid. I believe it is since July 1st, after really struggling since being called up back from that injury and not having a spring training. And then, so the Mariners, as you can see with the broom, they complete the sweep, a 7-6 win on Sunday. It was a nail biter. The Mariners went out and jumped ahead first. They had 2 runs in each of the first 3 innings. Emerson Hancock was actually pitching pretty well, but he goes out with a lat injury, something that he had dealt with last season, and the Mariners didn't want to mess with it. So he comes out after just 2 innings. Taylor Saucedo, who has been reliable as all hell this season for Seattle, has a tough outing, and this one gives up 5 runs. But the bullpen is able to come back and get his back after Saucedo has had the team's back before. And the Mariners pull out with a win. Our player of the game, third baseman Eugenio Suarez, 1 hit, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and several defensive gems out on third base, continuing to make his case for a Gold Glove, including a 2-run homer. On the offensive side of the ball. Sorry, I was confused. I was like, why does that make any sense? Obviously, said his name a bunch. Player of the week. It makes sense. We've got a lot of history to look at here with Julio as well. Over the past 7 games, Julio, 21 hits, 7 runs, 12 RBIs, 1 walk, 6 stolen bases, 2 homers, a 568. Yes, a 568 batting average, a 579 on base percentage, an 838 slugging to amount to a 1.417 OPS. This is where we get to the records and stats. So there's a lot to go over here. Julio becomes the 4th player in club history with 20 plus homers and 30 plus stolen bases in a single season. The 1st player in Mariners history with 20 plus homers in each of his first 2 major league seasons. He ties the club record, with a hit in 9 consecutive at bats. He becomes the 1st player in major league history with 14 hits and 5 stolen bases in a 4-game span. He has the MLB record with 17 hits in 4 games. He tied the MLB record with 4 consecutive games of 4+ hits with a man named Milt Stock back in 1925. He tied for the 2nd most hits in a 5-game span since at least 1901, behind only Jimmy Johnston, who had 19 in 1923. So Julio, historic by many means in this one. And I don't want to hit the ceiling, but got a broom here, so we'll just get rid of Houston over there and sweep them aside. I know that a lot of Houston fans, I do have some rubbish here. It'd be really nice if it was just a bunch of Astros logos. Look at that. Brilliant. To get that sweep was big. Not only, you continued to hold your spot in that 3rd American League wild card, you're also gaining more ground towards the top of the division, let alone Houston. You're right on Houston's tail right now. We'll get the exact number here. You're right on Houston's tail after that sweep against the Astros. The Astros actually held a team meeting after this game where they got swept. Martin Maldonado and a few other players spoke. They called the sweep a slap in the face, so that was fun. After all these years of Houston dominating, it feels good. So, but the Mariners are playing good baseball right now. You look up and down the lineup, it's obviously Julio had a really strong performance, but there are a lot of players who are coming in and chipping in. Jose Caballero has had his moments. He's had his bad moments as well, including a couple errors in the first game that had things a little scary. The Mariners are only a half game back of the Astros for 2nd in the West, only 3 games back of the Rangers for 1st in the West. So, knock on wood. They're playing good team baseball. They got J.P. Crawford back today on a roster move that we'll go over here in a second. There are some injuries to note, but they're playing good team baseball, and it's coming internally. I said this throughout the course of the year after they didn't start the season off how people might have thought they would. It's got to come internal for the Mariners. They've got the talent to do so, and they've been doing so. So it's very important that these guys are clicking right now. And there are even some guys that could be playing better, and I talk about returns. JP Crawford's going to come back into this lineup. And Jared Kelenic is on track for an early September return. So these are very positive things, and it's very exciting to look at for this Mariners team because of what people had hoped they'd accomplish at the beginning of the season and because of how slow things were, not only for several individuals on this team, but this team as a whole. So we'll get over here towards team news and roster moves. We'll go in order. I talked about some stuff happening today, but we'll go in order. August 16th, the team placed catcher Tom Murphy on the 10-day injured list with a left thumb sprain, which is retroactive to August 14th. So tough to lose Tom after he's been hitting really well in the last few weeks to that thumb injury. I haven't heard anything that's saying that he won't be able to come back after those 10 days. So we will see about that. And as a corresponding move, the team selected catcher Brian O'Keefe from AAA Tacoma. Brian O'Keefe actually had a big base knock, drove in a couple runs during this. I believe it was during the 10-3 win. I believe it was. August 17th, the team optioned right-handed pitcher Ryder Ryan to Tacoma, and as a result, called up Edward Bazardo, who was a trade deadline acquisition the day of the trade deadline. And they called him from AAA Tacoma. He's got some good stuff. It's just about controlling it, which you could say that about a lot of people. But obviously, with the reputation of the Mariners organization, and their pitching factory, so to say, some hope there that he can turn that thing around. He is still with the team as of this current moment. So it'll be interesting to see how long he stays up and if he stays up. Other corresponding moves. Today, the 21st, the Mariners activated JP Crawford from the 7-day injured list. He is with the team in Chicago and might play tonight when they begin their series. He did have a rehab assignment against the Aqua Sox 2 days ago. He went over 3, a couple flyouts and a ground out. Yes. And was taken off as a defensive substitution in the 6th inning. Obviously, I'm sure the Mariners felt like he was ready, so they're like, "Hey, we'll get you out of here." The team recalled right-handed pitcher Darren McCacken from AAA Tacoma. Option infielder / outfielder Sam Haggerty to AAA Tacoma, and placed right-handed pitcher Emerson Hancock on I believe it was the 15-day. Let me double check this. They placed him on the injured list with, excuse me, a right lat strain, which is something, again, I talked about that he had delayed the beginning of his season last year. So it's not something to mess with. I'm sure the Mariners want to have that taken care of. It was talked about having a 6-man rotation when the team got to Chicago because Brian Wu should be activated here pretty soon. But with Hancock going down and unsure how long that'll take, that 6-man rotation will obviously have to wait for the Mariners there, which not the worst thing in the world. Yes, right shoulder strain. Okay, wanted to make sure that I got that right. So I believe once we get that loaded up here, come on, baby. I apologize. That should be it for all things Mariners related. They've got. We looked at it last week, and we talked about this being a fortunate schedule that you had to take advantage of, and it still is. I mean, you should be able to beat the Royals with how bad their starting pitching has been. They do have weak spots in their lineup. They do have some quality in their lineup as well. But good to see them get the series win. It would have been nice to get the 4-game sweep, obviously, but they weren't able to do so. The White Sox have struggled all season long, and they're kind of in the slumps of things. The Astro series was big, so to get a sweep out of that was huge. I don't know how many people would have expected that. The Royals come back, and the Mariners will have to play them in the next homestand, and then they will host the Oakland Athletics. And we all know about the struggles of the Athletics this season. So it will be Oh, I apologize. Having some technical difficulties there. It'll be quite interesting to see how the Mariners will be able to finish out the month of August as we head into the month of September. Um, when it gets into crunch time, after this upcoming homestand where they host the Royals and the Athletics, they have a road trip that's not going to be easy. They'll have to go out and play the Mets to begin that road trip. And excuse me, the Mets have been one of those teams who have disappointed as well. But then they play the Reds, who have a ton of talent, a ton of young talent, including calling up former Mariners prospect Novi Marte just a few days ago. So got to get through this fortunate stretch. Got to be able to put yourself in a good position. You have the division in sight, which is crazy to think about after the struggles you had, and it seemed like Texas was just going to run away with it. So you have the opportunity to take care of your own situation, and you need to do that. You need to be able to control your destiny. You've got that in your hands. That was something that last year's team struggled with. They, probably could have had a higher wild card spot, but they struggled. There were some games against the Diamondbacks last year that they struggled with. So you've got an opportunity. You've got an opportunity to shock some people and keep things rolling. So anyway, we'll get to it. The next series, the upcoming games for the Mariners, as they have a 69-55 record, sitting at third in the American League West, 3 games behind the Rangers for the top of the division, a half game back from the Astros for second in the division, and sitting a half a game up from the Toronto Blue Jays for that third and final American League wildcard spot. Their next games, August 21st, through 23rd at the Chicago White Sox. The first 2 games, August 21st and 22nd, are 5:10 Pacific time starts. And then the third and final game of that series is an 11:10 a.m. start on August 23rd. After that, they'll have a day off after that game on the 23rd to get back to Seattle, when they'll begin a 7-game homestand that starts with a 3-game series. Wait. We'll just say it. Begin the homestand with a series against the Kansas City Royals, August 25th. Versus the Royals is a 7:10 start on Friday. That's on Apple TV Plus. I repeat, that's on Apple TV Plus. A lot of people were surprised to find out that Sunday's game against the Astros was on Peacock, and only Peacock. So a programming note that Friday's game on the 25th versus the Royals is on Apple TV Plus. So if you're in the area and you don't have it, I just advise you to go to the game instead. If you don't want to pay for Apple. And then August 26th versus the Royals on Saturday and Sunday. The 26th and the 27th are both 1:10 p.m. Pacific time starts. So a note there. And then the 26th game is on ESPN Plus. I'm going to double check here to see if it's on both ESPN Plus and Root Sports. 26. Yeah, it is on Root Sports as well, but it's also on ESPN Plus. So something to take note of there. And then August 27th, as I mentioned, a 1:10 start, as well as the Mariners look to close out that series against the Royals with another serious win and keep things rolling.